Tarik Skubal wins the battle of the Cy Young candidates as the Detroit Tigers play a pretty darn good ball game. We'll talk about that and much more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, June 26th, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Tigers is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Well, don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get some help from a team of licensed tax professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked on. And the Detroit Tigers win a ball game over the Philadelphia Phillies at home by a score of 4-1 on Tuesday night in what was, I really do think, one of the more impressive wins they've had all season. Right. And that doesn't completely change my opinion of where this team is at, or one game is not changing anything really that I've talked about. A lot of episodes I feel like have been kind of doom and gloom lately. And this one should, in principle, we'll see where my brain takes us. But this one I think should be a little bit more lighthearted and positive. This really was an impressive victory all around. You went up and you faced one of the best pitchers in all of baseball this year. You got to him late, toward the end of his outing, rather. You got to him there in the fifth inning. I know that they only scored in the one inning, right? They scored 4 runs all in the fifth, was it? Yeah, in the fifth. But this was again, all around great pitching, solid bullpen play. We'll talk about Foley, but did enough. Everybody did enough to get the job done. And the offense, for all of the shortcomings that it does have, and the fact that it did get shut out for 8 innings in this one, it was against a really darn good pitcher, and they came out on top. I'm very impressed, very pleased, and very happy with this victory on Tuesday night. And I feel like that's probably not something that I've said too terribly often. So I'm hoping, again, we'll see. Sometimes I think the episode's going to sound one way and it sounds different, but I think that this will probably be a pretty, again, positive show. I was really impressed with everything. So let's start with what went right. While the Tigers are now 37-42, by the way, on the season. I don't know if I said their record. What went right? Well, the star of the show this evening was Tarik Skubal. 7 innings, 3 hits, no earned runs, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts. There is an argument, and in a season of dominance for him, there's an argument that this was one of his best starts of the season, which is remarkable considering the amount of success he has had so far this season. Fastball was absolutely incredible. Hit 101 miles an hour at one point, was hitting 100 multiple times. But I think the star of the show, as far as his pitch repertoire went, was the changeup. That may be the best changeup I have ever seen from him, and it's a phenomenal pitch already. It was nearly unhittable, like as close to literally unhittable as I think you'll probably see out of a changeup at the major league level. I think it had 10 or 11 whiffs. It was a strike almost every single time he threw it, whether it was a swinging miss strike or a strike in the zone or both. He was absolutely dismantling every single hitter he saw with it. There was the one changeup I think that really spoke to how dominant the pitch was in this outing and kind of perfectly highlights its effectiveness. First off, threw it more than any other pitch, threw more changeups than 4-seam fastballs in this outing, which is a good start to kind of prove that point. But there was an at-bat, I believe it was to Trey Turner in the middle of the outing. And Trey Turner was up in the count. I want to say it was a 2-0 count. It might have been 2-1, but I'm pretty sure it was a 2-0 count. And he threw, while behind in the count, a changeup to a righty that went low and in. And it was a swing and miss strike that was, if Trey Turner doesn't swing at it, is a ball low and inside. And he gets to 3-0, I think it would have been, but it might have been 3-1. Either way, the hitter being ahead in the count, the pitcher, he was behind in the count to an opposite hand platoon and threw a changeup low and in, which is, if you miss as a lefty, a changeup low and in to an opposite handedness, really righty or lefty, if it's an opposite hand hitter, that's a no-no zone. That's a really dangerous spot to throw a changeup if that clips the strike zone. And he swung right through it. Not only that, kind of like corkscrewed himself into the ground a little bit. He's unbelievable. He is the best pitcher this team has had since Verlander left, bar none. It's not even really particularly close. And he is one of the best pitchers on the planet. He is the front runner for American League Cy Young, I believe, still, according to FanDuel. But if he fell back a little bit in his last couple of starts, this start should catapult him back into the forefront there. We are almost at the half point in the season. That's coming up here. What is that next game? To whatever math. I think we're still a couple of games away. But approaching the All-Star break, Tarik Skubal he's a bad man. He is. I mean, him shouting when he was coming off the mound, his energy, his competitive edge, and the mindset that he has while he's on the bump is second to none. That's a bad man, and he knows he's a bad man. And it is something special to watch him every fifth day. And this is a really good Phillies lineup. This is not, he dismantled the Oakland Athletics or the Chicago White Sox. This is, he completely sliced and diced and tore apart the team with the best record in baseball. Unbelievable. The Detroit Tigers offense scored runs off of Ranger Suarez. Now, I as we said at the beginning of the show, right? Like, this is they scored in one inning. This wasn't a masterclass performance. I honestly think they should have scored more runs when they had the bases loaded and no outs than what they ended up. I think they left something on the base paths there, but I think that we're going to take it. I'm not going to complain too terribly much about scoring 4 runs off of a guy that had a 1.75 ERA or something like that going into this ball game, right? This is a pitcher who, if we were a really good offense, I would be given thumbs up over 4 runs in, what did he end up throwing? 6 innings? Yeah, 4 runs in 6. He didn't even get a quality start, right? If we were one of the better offenses in baseball and we put up 4 runs against Ranger Suarez, given what he's done this season, I'd be pretty pumped about it, and I'd be pretty pleased. So the fact that this offense isn't good and we put up 4 runs despite getting shut out in 5 of the 6 innings that he threw, I'm going to gladly take it. I really, and like, this Phillies bullpen is good, right? And I know we'll talk about Gregory Soto a little bit later, but like, this is a really, really good baseball team. And I am just finding it really hard to complain too much like I usually do with this particular ball game. I'm kind of all smiles with this one. I'm going to gladly take our 4 runs here in the 5th inning and go home with a win. I think the at-bats were pretty good. The approach was good. 4 strikeouts for Suarez. He's a really good sinker ball pitcher. So, but he has the ability to get swings and misses plenty. And I think that is what I was most impressed with. There was plenty of balls on the ground, plenty of balls that kind of were seeing eye that like just squeaked through the infield and whatnot, but they were also driving the ball into the outfield. And so I was really impressed with the approach and the ABs from the entire team, which again is not something we've been able to say too terribly often over the last month of watching this offense. So again, I'm really glad. I'm really just kind of pleased with this one. We'll keep the ball rolling. I got some individuals I want to talk about on the offensive side of the ball. We'll talk about what went wrong in this game, which is very, very short, and then our lengthy section known as stuff. All right, we will do all of that right after this. Going to talk to you all today about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is the formula for bringing home a championship and also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home a huge win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Also got to talk to you all today about our friends over at LinkedIn. Are you struggling to close deals? Business-to-business selling is tougher than ever before, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive insurer revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and get started. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate you all for tuning in as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day, and we will be back tomorrow recapping this third and final game in the Phillies series, as well as talking about anything else surrounding the Tigers organization. Also, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today, the free 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, program for you every day, bringing you the biggest stories in sports from all of our great hosts here at Locked On. Again, you can subscribe for free on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today, or check it out for free in the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Talking about what went right in this ball game, talked about Tarik Skubal, who was absolutely phenomenal. We'll talk a little bit more about him again later in stuff. The ABs talked about the offense a little bit. Individuals on the offensive side of thing, Andy Ibanez with a really big hit to kind of, I don't know, just really for momentum's sake. I was really worried. Matt Vierling grounds that ball out. They do score a run. I thought that was going to be a double play. I was very concerned for a little bit there. And then Andy Ibanez with the big hit to score 2 runs. That proved being very, very important. And Andy Ibanez continues to just be an absolute gamer, especially against left-handed pitching. You knew that he was going to be hitting pretty high in the lineup when Ranger Suarez was on the mound. No Colt Keith. One of the reasons why, again, lefty against one of the better lefties in the sport, makes sense. Didn't have much of an issue with it, and the Tigers won. So clearly it worked out in Hinch's favor there. Ryan Kreidler with an absolutely massive ball game a day after I was very critical of him, as baseball tends to do. He goes 2 for 2 with a walk and 2 stolen bases. The steals were fantastic. That's just heads up baseball. That's just high IQ ball right there. Massive respect. Was clearly reading Dominguez like a book. I mean, just had his timing down and had his number really the entire time there. So that was really impressive. And like the hit, one of the hits was a bunt. One was a ball that, Trey Turner kicked a little bit. Like they weren't really like impressive hits that make me think that he's gonna turn it around and start crushing the baseball or anything. But a really, really good game, a really valuable game. Played a good defense at short as well. Those are the kind of things that once upon a time people thought he was going to bring to the table to the major league team. No one expected him, this dude to be an 800 plus OPS hitter at the major league level, but good defense, heads up baseball, bottom of the lineup, can at least make some stuff happen sometimes. That was the expectation at one point, 3 years ago with Ryan Kreidler when he was hitting the crap out of the ball down in Toledo. So to see him have a good game, even if it's short-lived, and I'd imagine, he's still going to be the one that's sent down. I haven't changed my opinion, big picture, on too many things because of one ball game, but I'd imagine he's still going to get sent down when Javi comes back. But still a really, really good day at the office for him. I was very impressed. And yeah, played a driving force in this ball game. So hats off, and just want to give him his flowers for the good ball game. Also, him being out at home is not really his fault. That's very much a team philosophy. That's something that we've seen all year from this team. The coaching staff has talked about it. The media has talked about it. We've talked about it here plenty, right? Like, that's just how this team operates. And you kind of are forced to when your offense doesn't score as often or as much as an above average offense does. You're in a position where you have to be uber aggressive on the base path sometimes. And that's something that, again, this team has very much adopted. So I don't blame quote unquote Kreidler for being thrown out at home whatsoever. That's just the team's philosophy, and it didn't work out in that moment. That ball was hit straight to Trey Turner. He had time to make a sandwich and a cold brew before he could even had to throw home, and still got Kreidler in plenty of time. I thought Malloy put some good swings on the ball, did have a strikeout, and the strikeout was with the curveball. And I think that that's something that we are going to continue to have to look at. That's something we talked about yesterday. He struck out on 3 straight curveballs in the exact same place on 2 days ago's game, on Monday's game. And on Tuesday night's game, the one strikeout was with a lower curveball that was in a similar area. So we're going to keep an eye on that. He doesn't seem to be hitting that very well. Did have a ball that was crushed to left field for a flyout, and then had a hit to left field as well. So still pretty impressed with how he looked against one of the better pitchers in baseball this season. Winfield Perez, a really good game as well. Just really solid for the boys. Really, genuinely. Like, I was really impressed. I don't have too much bad to say, which transitions us to what went wrong. It really wasn't much. Solid game all around. Again, like, I'm not going to expect this team to put up 9. Maybe it's just lowered expectations, but like, again, this is the team with the best record in baseball. Like, and the Tigers looked like the better team. Like, in really all facets, the Tigers looked like the better team on the field in this ball game. Maybe I should be frustrated because they have the ability to look like this, but not consistently. But also, like, you have one of the best, if not the best pitcher alive right now on the mound for you. Like, that's certainly going to help quite a bit in those situations. So I don't really have too much issue with the offense, despite 8 shutout innings there. The Gio Urshela error, I guess, if you want to get super nitpicky, but we just praised his defense earlier. Jason Foley, I think, is like the one that if I wanted to pick a player that had to fall into this category, it's probably him. The home run to it is Bryce Harper, though. Like, and it wasn't like a huge catastrophic, costly mistake. It's just, it looks like the velocity is never going to bounce back. And I know a lot of people came to that conclusion a while ago, and we haven't really talked about that too much on here, but he also hasn't pitched much lately. He's only pitched like 3 or 4 times in the last 2 weeks. And that's partly to do with just situationally, the Tigers haven't been in save situations very often, but I think it's also because they want to rest this dude's arm to an extent. And so, yeah, I'm curious in what he looks like the rest of the year. And I'm curious if he's going to be in trade talks. And I know people are tired of hearing about trade talks and how that's our off season every year for the better part of a decade now, but it's reality. So we're going to talk about it. I mean, I think, I was anti-trading Foley last year. I think this year there's a little bit more kind of steam behind that. The value's still pretty decent for him, but he also has his shortcomings that we talk about quite a bit, with just the inability to get swings and misses and whatnot. So we'll see. Well, again, we're going to have a ton of trade deadline coverage as we get into July and the All-Star break and post-All-Star break and whatnot. So we'll have that conversation plenty more. But it wouldn't shock me if he was in talks either. Okay, I only have one. I'm going to get super nitpicky, okay? Like overly nitpicky, because I guess, I don't know, I have to complain about something. I'm going to get super nitpicky here on the other side of the break, and then we'll get into stuff for the rest of the show. We'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to you all about our friends over at Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Tigers, we pride ourselves in letting you get the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after your unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked on. See the link in this episode description below. Also got to talk to y'all about our friends over at Prize Picks. Look, it is a really, really fun time of year to be a baseball fan, and Prize Picks can add to that. It is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on daily fantasy action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. Again, more or less on player stats. It's so fun to look at starting pitchers. Tarik Skubal, always a joy to watch, and on the mound and in Prize Picks when you can look at those strikeout numbers. But there's a lot of really fun stuff. There's even one of my favorite things to look at is fantasy points scored for players on the baseball diamond. I think that's really cool as well. Again, the biggest and best daily fantasy sports game out there. So download Prize Picks today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. So as promised, I'm going to get way too overly picky here, but something, I talked about the good approaches in this ball game. I do think that they were good approaches top to bottom against one of the premier pitchers in the league. But one of the issues I did have was when the Tigers had bases loaded, no outs, their approaches in that situation. Matt Vierling swung on a 2-0 pitch that was a sinker below the zone, which is exactly what Suarez is trying to get there. He's trying to get a double play so that he can they'll exchange one run for 2 outs there 10 times out of 10, right? So that's what he's trying to do. It was really close to being a double play, but they went for the safe out and just got 1 out. And then Andy Ibanez comes up, is in a 2-0 count, and then swings at a ball that almost hits him in the shoes, fouls it off, and then does Andy Ibanez things and comes through and gets 2 runs. Look, I'm not trying to complain about 2 ABs that scored us runs inevitably, right? Both of those at bats, as frustrated as I was in the moment, led to 3 runs being scored between the 2 of them combined. So I'm not trying to again, like cry over spilled milk or be overly analytical or overly harsh over something that at the end of the day did help us win. But in that moment, like, that is why this team is so bad consistently with runners in scoring position. That is why. So that was like the only moment really I was ever even remotely like actually frustrated or had, a legitimate issue with this ball game. That was pretty much it. And then Andy Ibanez, again, a pitch later, knocked in 2 runs. And I was like, okay, well, forget me then. Screw me. What do I know? Andy Ibanez is going to do Andy Ibanez things. That's part of his approach. It's just, when that's your 1 and 2 hitters in the lineup, again, that's just why this team struggles with risk. But we're going to put that off to the side for now. Again, a really, really solid victory. Let's talk stuff. The hype around this pitching matchup was awesome. I think that this was one of the more talked about and kind of hyped up matchups in the entire game of baseball. You have the Subway Series going on right now. So that kind of got the national media attention as far as like nationally broadcasted games and whatnot. But just in terms of talk around the baseball community, everybody was locked in to Skubal versus Suarez. And I think that that's really cool. And that's something that having Tarik Skubal on your team obviously offers and is really just cool for the Tigers to be in that conversation. And maybe that's like the bar is on the floor type of stuff. But I really think it's cool, even with the amount of struggles that we've had this year and over the last several years, to be able to be in the national media in any capacity in a positive light, I'm going to take and run with. So it was really cool just to see all the hype going into the game and to come out on top. Even better. Tarik Skubal going up against Suarez and Tarik Skubal shoving shutout ball. Maybe this is a little like college football-y of me, right? Like Heisman moments. Like that's kind of one of those at the end of the year when you're like, oh, who's going to win Cy Young? It's like, oh, remember when Skubal went head-to-head with a guy with a 1.75 ERA and won? That was pretty cool, right? I think that those moments mean something just from a fan perspective, if nothing less. So, yeah, another really cool moment there. They scored between 3 and 9 runs. I almost cried. I almost shed a tear. We talked about it on yesterday's show. This team has not scored between 3 and 9 runs in like 2 weeks or something ridiculous. We're approaching, like 12 or 13 games or something since they've scored any run total between 3 and 9. It's all been 1-2-0, 1-2-0, or 11 and 13. So to actually just have, hey, look, we had a solid day at the office. This isn't an outlier in the positive end, but it's also not getting shut out. Like they just had a fine, solid ball game under their belt. It's such a weird thing to celebrate, but my goodness, it's been a while. I mean, genuinely, can you wrap your head around that? It's been like 2 weeks or longer, however long it's been since they've scored more than 3 and less than 9 runs. That is ridiculous. That's absurd. That's hilarious. It's just nice to have a normal baseball game feel in a win. My goodness. Seeing Gregory Soto on the mound brought a nice little tear to my eye. I'm not going to lie. I know a lot of this fan base doesn't like Gregory Soto very much. A lot of people had big issues with him. I always really liked Gregory Soto, as a lot of people who are longtime listeners know. I was a big fan of his when he first kind of burst onto the scene there and came up through the system. Gregory Soto is, he's a dog. I love Gregory Soto, and seeing him back on. I know that's not a shared sentiment, but just for me personally, like seeing him back out there, and got about a 4 ERA. Kind of just still looks like Gregory Soto. Throws really hard, doesn't get as many strikeouts as he probably should for throwing really hard. Gets hit around sometimes, walks some people sometimes. Still him. That trade we can talk about more. We talked about it a lot this winter. Tigers don't look like they got a whole lot for him. I mean, would you do Vierling for Soto straight up at the time? I think that's kind of a mixed bag of answers you would get there. Riley Green, another great big hit for him, and also crushed a ball to dead center field, kind of got Comerica a little bit there. It's wild to me how disrespected he has been in the All-Star voting, and we kind of talked about that when the first wave of voting happened, and I was like, yeah, I think Skubal and maybe Flaherty are probably your only All-Stars, but as far as the position players, the voting goes, I'm not sure anyone really deserves it. And I don't know if Riley Green, because everyone loves to look at like, oh, he's, like one of the best left fielders in baseball. Well, that's not how All-Star voting works, right? It's just outfield. And there are like pretty close to objectively, 4 or 5 outfielders, all encompassing outfielders that are better than Riley Green in the American League, but he is much more in that conversation than he has been given credit for. The fact that he's nowhere even in like the top 10 in All-Star voting, I think is absolutely ridiculous and absurd. And he absolutely deserves to be more in that conversation. He's one of the better outfield hitters in the American League. He's been one of the more valuable outfielders in the American League. He's much more like, oh, there's an argument for him like getting pushed in than he doesn't deserve to be in the top 10. So I think that's something I wanted to point out as well. And that's pretty much it. The only other thing I got is just some roster moves. Mason Englert goes to AAA. Easton Lucas to the major leagues. I think he's going to get sent down probably by the time most of you are listening to this. Kiter Montero is going to start the game on a Wednesday today. And I think Lucas was just the corresponding move. He was going to be up for one day just to be a bullpen arm while Englert got sent down. Then they'll send Lucas down, and Montero will start the game on Wednesday. And then I think, I don't know this, but if I had to guess, I would guess that then Montero is going to get sent down and Faedo is going to be activated off the injured list. And we're going to have 4 different pitchers in that last roster spot in 4 different days, in 4 consecutive days rather. But that's my guess, but I didn't want to throw that out there. Spencer Torkelson also hits 2 home runs down in Toledo. Always got to talk about him because he's one of the biggest talking points of this team right now. 2 homers. One of them was an opposite field home run off of a 95 or 96 mile an hour sinker. Good to see him drive a ball that is in that has high velocity. And then the other one was a grand slam off of a changeup. He had been thrown, I think Tigers minor league report said that he threw the pitcher threw 6 or 7 changeups in a row to Torkelson, and then he just destroyed one. So take that with what you will, but seeing him go yard twice will always take. Really just want to see him consistently hit velocity, and he'll be back up here in a heartbeat if he starts doing that. So really take much more stock into, again, opposite field velocity. Nice to see him, for someone who was so pull-oriented at the second half of last year and this year, seeing him use the opposite field was nice. So that leads us to today's game, the rubber match of this series. You got a chance to win a series against the Philadelphia Phillies at home. That's pretty darn cool. Let's go try to do it. Spencer Turnbull, the revenge game. He's talked about it a lot already. I don't really have much to say about it. I want the Tigers to win. I don't have too many feelings on the situation at this point. It was weird. They're still being hush-hush. We're not going to talk about it. Turnbull's blaming the organization a lot. The organization's been blaming Turnbull a lot. I have no clue what happened. But at the end of the day, he's a Philly now. And I hope we give him a warm homecoming here. And Keider Montero, I don't know. That's a tall task. It's a really, really tall task for him to go against this lineup. So we will hope for the best. But no matter what happens, you won one. You avoided the sweep, and again, they looked really good on Tuesday. And we're gonna focus on that. We're gonna focus on the now. Okay, we'll worry about Wednesday and Wednesday's game when we get to it. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day, and we will be back tomorrow. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.